How you guys doing? It is Monday, May 25th, 2020. We're in this quarantine and I'm James Sims. And for this installment of The Elite, I kind of wanted to get into Trevor Lawrence, the NFL draft prospects for next year's draft, who is currently playing at Clemson, and his birthday is October 6th, 1999. So he's the oldest player out of the elites that's younger than I am, which is very impressive considering I'm about to be a senior in college. Like, that's how young I am. There's so many players down here that I mentioned that are younger than I am. But yeah, so Trevor Lawrence is the oldest out of them, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of explanation why. So I'm just gonna go back to when he was a prospect, and if you guys were aware, Trevor Lawrence was the Georgia State Player of the Year. His senior year, he threw for 30,000 yards for 41 touchdowns and one interception. I mean, he eventually became the number one prospect in his class. He decided to commit to Tennessee, decommitted, and then he decided to go to Clemson under Dabo Swinney, where he would become the starting quarterback his freshman year. Because even in Georgia, he was one of the best quarterbacks that people have really seen. And it really meant a lot. It really was a testament to how good his game was, considering he went to Clemson, and as a freshman, he was made the starter of the team after, it took a second, but once Trevor Lawrence fully started with his feet on the ground running, Clemson could not be stopped. At Clemson, he started and played 30 games, 15 games in both seasons, and the only game that he lost was the national championship this past season to the eventual 15-0 LSU Tigers, with the Heisman winner and one of the best teams that was drafted in one year, one of the best collections of talent that we've seen in college football. So I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that in his 30 games, he only lost one game, and the one game he lost was in the championship to a very, very good team. And of course, in that time, in his freshman year, he completed 65% of his passes in his 15 games, throwing for 30 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, throwing for 3,300 yards in those 15 games. Very, very impressive. And at that point, he was able to lead his team past Alabama and beat them pretty handily. And during that season, he had a lot of highlights along the way, and college fans were able to see what makes Trevor Lawrence so great. I mean, he's 6'6". He's incredibly tall. He can see over the top of his linemen, and if you build around him, especially as an NFL team, if you have tall linemen, you can get bigger linemen that he can see over. And I think that's a very solid advantage. He has amazing eyes. He can see over. He can basically see through any defense. He's really impressive. He's able to read defenses better than most quarterbacks his age. He's ahead of his time in that aspect. Trevor Lawrence he also throws a very completable football, which is something that I like to say about elite level quarterbacks. There are some players that, they complete a lot of passes, but Trevor Lawrence throws a consistently completable football. Sometimes he'll get it down the field. He gets a little risky with his throws, especially as he's matured into a football player. But I think he's growing more confident about his deeper throws. He's incredibly accurate. He has an amazing arm, and he will do whatever the play requires for him to win. In his freshman year, he blew through the ACC with relative ease, making it to the college football playoff and eventually beating Alabama in the championship game at the end of it all. And at that point, he had finished his first year as a starter as a freshman as the national championship quarterback. And I think that really speaks a little bit to how elite he is to win the championship as a freshman pretty handily. I mean, there was not as much pressure because he did what he was supposed to do when he was told to do it. And of course, the defense held his back and didn't allow Alabama to score as much as Clemson did. But Trevor Lawrence most definitely held up his end of the deal, held up his end of the bargain, and Clemson ended up winning his freshman year. He was the quarterback of the national championship team, and he was the main contributor on offense. And I think that's very impressive. You don't see that very often. And of course, in his second year, his stats got a little better as he he started off a little bit slower, but he was still finally able to throw for 3,700 yards, 36 touchdowns. He had 8 interceptions, which is double what he had last time. But considering he played 15 games, he's averaging an interception every other game, which I don't think it takes away from him being elite. I think he got a little bit more risky, and he got a bit more trusting in his receivers. And I've seen a lot of the games. Some of the interceptions weren't his fault, but at the end of the day, they're still interceptions that go to him. This year, I think he went through the ACC with relatively more ease than last time. Clemson was so much better than the rest of the ACC at this time that they hadn't really played much harder competition, and it showed that they were still an elite level team when they went into Ohio State and they beat them in the semifinal game, despite Ohio State having the clear edge early, and then eventually Trevor Lawrence willed the team back into the game to help them secure the victory and give them a spot in the championship game against LSU, where they would eventually get beat pretty handily, and that would be Trevor Lawrence's first loss. In his entire career came in the second national championship that he played. Don't get me wrong, he's had amazing coaching around him. He's had amazing offensive linemen, amazing running back, amazing weapons. That doesn't take away from how good he is. For the weapons that he had, I think not many quarterbacks would have done. They wouldn't have operated as consistently as Trevor Lawrence does with his team. So I think with this, Trevor Lawrence has become a top-tier NFL prospect because after seeing what people have seen with Clemson, they know that if they can build a team around Trevor Lawrence will help that team. He'll do the best that he can to win, and he can produce better than a lot of other quarterbacks that are his age. That is what I think separates Trevor Lawrence from the rest of the pack in terms of just being a talent. And I know that teams in the summer or teams next summer are going to try to tank for a chance of getting Trevor Lawrence because they can see that with his size, his ability, his athleticism. He's pulled off some really big runs for Clemson, especially in the Ohio State game, the one that got them the touchdown, that got them back in the game. Trevor Lawrence can really help your team in a lot of ways, and he's a player that I see as like an Andrew Luck, a John Elway, a Peyton Manning type prospect that you simply can't miss. And if you have the number 1 overall pick and your quarterback isn't one of the greatest, if your quarterback isn't Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or an elite young quarterback who can be an MVP in his own right at any point, I'd expect you to take Trevor Lawrence. I would hope that you do. That would be the smart choice. Either him or Justin Fields. There's not really a wrong answer, and I'll get into the Justin Fields video a bit later. But for now, I'm speaking on Trevor Lawrence because ever since he's been in the national spotlight as a high school player, he's always been the cream of the crop, and there haven't been other quarterbacks that have even really come close. And we, as college football fans, have become bored of how good Trevor Lawrence is. That people simply just stop watching Clemson because they know that Clemson's going to destroy them offensively. They're going to destroy them defensively. And since they have Trevor Lawrence on the offense, there's no point of watching because they know the other team isn't going to win until they get deep into the playoffs. That's when people start watching Clemson. So I think that's a testament to how amazing Trevor Lawrence is. He's an amazing prospect. Teams are going to tank for him. He has the size, speed, ability. He has the patience. And he's getting older, so you can see him becoming a better quarterback. You can see him growing and learning from his mistakes. And once he gets to the NFL, I'm not going to stop watching this kid. He's gonna be amazing. And I'm going to keep calling him a kid because he's technically younger than I am. But he's good at football. He's done a lot for this Clemson program, and I think it's impressive that his first ever career loss as a starting quarterback was in the second national championship that he started in. And he started in both seasons, the whole season, both seasons. So that's why I think Trevor Lawrence is elite. And of course, if you think otherwise, if you ever have the chance, please let me know. But I think he's one of the elites. You should definitely watch him. And with that, I'm gonna sign off. Peace.